Football is much harder to play now than it was in the 1980s and 1990s. The tempo of the game is primarily being discussed because modern football is played at a much faster pace than traditional football. The players must put in a lot of work because they have a lot of games in many different competitions, national team commitments, and training. Football players now retire differently as a result of this. Players frequently choose to retire in their 30s, but it comes at a significant financial cost and at the expense of muscle, knee, and joint fatigue. Let's examine the issue of why footballers retire in their 30s in more detail. Most football players stop playing after they turn 30. Additionally, players lose their ability to move quickly and other crucial performance skills as they get older. In today's football, it is unacceptable for a player to be slow and unable to keep up with the game's pace. You cannot improvise in today's game of football. It necessitates extensive preparation and physical fitness. Additionally, as players age, their wounds heal more slowly. Players who are injured are unable to respond to the coach's instructions or the game schedule that modern football demands. But why did it seem simpler in the 20th century? Football was played at a slower tempo and had fewer obligations during the season in the 1980s and 1990s. The players were able to rest more in between games because the training and obligation schedule was less demanding. During this time, it was common for players to be in their 30s and 40s. The pace was much more manageable than it is now, and they had plenty of time to rest. What drives football players to retire at the age of 30 then? Footballers often decide to call it quits at the age of 30 for a variety of reasons. One is that playing modern football comes with a lot of obligations and demands a lot of time, leaving the player with little time for his family. To spend more time with their families, many football players take an earlier retirement. Because they have fulfilled all of their goals, many people lose their desire to move on as time passes and grow dissatisfied. This covers trophies and financial stability. These withdrawal reasons, though, pale in comparison to others. Another justification for retirement for a 30-year-old is the loss of physical abilities. With time, athletes lose strength and speed. For a player in his mid-30s, racing in a game with significantly younger players is challenging. The player's confidence is impacted if they are physically unable to respond to the game's demands for the full 90 minutes. His performances are noticeably worse, which causes the team to lose momentum and vigor. In order to participate in the activities required by modern football, a player must be at least 30 years old. Unfortunately, the player's previous efforts had resulted in knee, joint, and muscle wear, which made him slower and more prone to accidents. Players' injuries from those years heal more slowly. The decision to join another club presents itself to many players whose contracts with clubs expire. Most footballers retire in their 30s because clubs find it difficult to sign players who are nearing the end of their playing careers. After turning 30, are football players still able to play? Although many athletes retire in their mid-30s, a small percentage of athletes continue to play into their 40s. Paulo Maldini is unquestionably one of the most well-known. Many players played for AC Milan between 1985 and 2009, but one in particular stood out. The unique captain and leader of AC Milan has always mesmerized other football players and fans with his composure and leadership on the field. At age 41, he gave up playing the sport. He only played for Milan during that time, where he made his debut when he was 17 years old. At the age of 41, another illustrious Italian athlete ended his career. It is Francesco Totti, the outstanding Roma captain. The Prince of Rome is renowned for his on-field mastery, excellent techniques, and devastating shots. He is the best player in Italian club history. He played 619 times and scored 250 goals during his entire career with Roma. In 2006, he and the Italian national team won the World Cup in Germany. He, like Maldini, had a significant influence on the team. Another outstanding football player who played on the Apennine Peninsula until he was 41 years old is the storied Javier Zanetti. He served as the captain of Nero Azzurri for 15 years. One of the greatest right-backs in football history, this player was renowned for his physical prowess and agility. There were many well-known players on the inter bench, but it was always obvious who the coach's outstretched hand on the field belonged to. Zanetti served as the generation's captain as they captured the Champions League trophy and the illustrious triplet in 2010. He announced his retirement in 2014. There are many examples of players who retired in their 40s in addition to these three exceptional athletes. Brazil's most renowned footballer, Ronaldo, played the game until he was 43 years old. Romario, a fellow countryman, played football until he was 42 years old. It's interesting to learn about Romario, a legendary Cameroonian musician who performed until he was 44 years old. As of the World Cup, he is the oldest player to have ever scored. At the age of 42, he accomplished this. At age 40, Ryan Giggs hung up his boots. Teddy Sheringham and Kevin Phillips should be mentioned alongside Ryan Giggs when discussing football players who have played in England. Why then do football goalkeepers tend to retire later than other players? It is a common adage that goalkeepers improve with age, just like wine. Football players retire at 30, but goalkeepers mature in their 30s, when they are mature. Of all the positions on a football team, the goalkeeper's career is the longest. There are many instances of elite goalkeepers who have defended or are defending in their 40s, and the caliber of their performances has never decreased. The goalkeeper has an advantage over other players due to the area they operate in. Football players lose their speed as they get older and are unable to perform the tasks necessary for modern football as they get older. Additionally, they put their muscles, joints, and knees through a lot of use over the course of their careers, which lowers their performance compared to before. They provide a game that requires a significant amount of strength consumption. In their 30s, goalkeepers gain experience. A skilled goalkeeper understands where to stand, which angles to cover, how to reach the center kick, and when to calm the game down. Contrary to other football positions, even though they tire their joints, knees, and muscles, this has little effect on how well they play. What matters most are their reflexes and how quickly they move. The goalkeeper will only run a few times during the game, so the loss of muscle mass has little impact on them. But goalies must constantly hone the skills that are necessary for their position. The renowned Italian goalkeeper Gianluigi Buffon is 42 years old and still competing. Iker Casillas and Edwin van der Sar defended themselves up until the age of 39. Brad Friedel played defense until he was 44 years old, spending the majority of his career in the English Premier League. Unquestionably, there is the illustrious Danish goalkeeper Peter Schmeichel, who retired in his 40s. Some of the most famous goalkeepers in football history, who also played into their 40s, include Dino Zoff, Peter Shilton, and Lev Yashin. A well-known goalkeeper from Brazil named Rogério Ceni retired at the age of 42 after amassing a total of over 100 goals in his career. There is a high risk of injuries that can end a player's career due to the high volume of competitive matches, training, and obligations imposed by modern football. The speed required by modern football places a great deal of stress on the player's knees, joints, and muscles. The player's performance suffers as a result, and he becomes slower as he ages. Goalkeepers who mature and gain experience in their 30s cannot be linked to a situation like this. That makes it impossible to compare them to players at other positions.